Welcome back to the Sox and Four podcast. We are brought to you by Ride the Wave Media and presented by 1 in 100. And 1 in 100 is the only online raffle website giving fans and experience seekers the chance to win tickets to live sporting events, concerts, music festivals, and more. Whether it be from your desktop or mobile device, winning tickets to your favorite events has never been so easy and fun. Choose your desired event, purchase a raffle ticket into the draw, and you can be the lucky winner. Shout out to 1 in 100 for keeping us afloat, keeping the baseball content coming out from MLB's Hot Corner. I'm happy enough to, or not even happy enough, but I just started using 1 in 100's website. I got my first ticket or first raffle entry from their website for the upcoming Bruins season while I'm in town in a few weeks. So why not throw your name into the draw, see if you win, or if not, the worst thing that happens is you lose and you got to get a real ticket. But best thing that could possibly happen is you win a ticket for super cheap, and it's definitely worth it. So shout out to 1 in 100. Welcome back to the 17th episode of the Sox and Four podcast, presented once again by Ride the Wave Media. My name is Brandon, with co-host Dan with us today, and this is the postseason show. Last time you guys were with us, we were predicting what could have happened in this wild postseason. Started right before the American League wildcard and National League wildcard games that definitely filled expectations. I think starting back looking at those games and to where we are today, right before the World Series starting tomorrow night. It's definitely been a fun ride and probably one of the most exciting roads in October I've seen in a while, for sure. That didn't include the Red Sox, of course, but still fun to cheer for these teams nonetheless and watch some of the best teams in baseball go head to head. Let's see. So we'll start today with some Red Sox talk. There's not a lot of it, but we are the Sox and Four podcast, so we are contractually obligated to speak about these Red Sox. They're just forget last season, forget it ever happened. We're on to 2020. But that doesn't go without speaking about the whole Mookie Betts, JD Martinez situation that's going to be hanging over all the Red Sox Nation's heads for the next few weeks or so. So the World Series does start this week, and contractually, JD Martinez is still on the team for at least the next 2 weeks or so. As soon as the World Series does conclude, though, that's when the clock starts ticking and the ball will really start rolling for the offseason this year for the Boston Red Sox. JD Martinez has that opportunity to opt out of his crazy max contract that he signed back in spring training 2 years ago. That really was the filler for David Ortiz, being that replacement, that middle of the order big power bat that provided that, like I said, that shadow that David Ortiz left once he retired, but definitely saw the results of that being back in the lineup immediately, seeing what the Red Sox were able to do in his very first season in Boston. But like management said, and like we've talked about in the past 5 episodes, the Red Sox management is looking to narrow this payroll, start slicing everything away that needs to go to get below that first luxury tax threshold, and so that this team is affordable for John Henry in the near future. They don't want to be paying all that extra luxury tax money, and if JD Martinez does end up opting out of his contract, that will definitely take a big burden off of it. What do you think the Red Sox would do if JD Martinez does end up opting out, Dan?
I don't know. It definitely puts them in a sticky situation because I feel like the DH position is one of the, it's a tough position to find just in the free agency market, year by year. We saw it before as Ortiz retired, the home run numbers went down. They were missing that power bat, and we got him in JD, but if he leaves, that definitely leaves a big hole in the lineup and adds to the mountain of problems the Red Sox already have.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of different opinions and views about this whole JD Martinez debate. We've definitely had it every show since the season concluded, but I think it would be in the long run if this luxury tax thing ends up being the biggest draw for the decisions for the offseason for the Red Sox. I think if JD does end up opting out of his contract and leaving about $60 million on the table in his future, I'm pretty sure he'll be able to find that somewhere else, especially with the offensive numbers he put up. But we posted about this on the Hot Corner Instagram a few weeks ago about the teams that JD could potentially end up on that are still young. There might be one power bat away from being in postseason contention. I think we talked about looking at the Chicago White Sox opposite the Red Sox, just bleach them a little bit, and JD could very well find himself playing on the south side, north side. I don't know Chicago, but playing in Chicago for one of the franchises, and especially with the young bats, the guy that won the AL batting title this year over there, and Tim Anderson. That team is really exciting. It's young, it's fun. They got from the Chris Sale trade that Yon Minkata. That team's going to be definitely in contention. They were in the Philly tank situation long time, but the results are finally starting to show from dealing and selling. So the Chicago White Sox are definitely on the up and up. They're going to be one of those rising contenders in the next few years, especially if JD ends up opting out and being a veteran presence in their lineup and just changing the color of his socks. Is there anywhere else you think JD might find himself in? That it's kind of hard to think about a spot that you would really need in the American League because the NL doesn't have the DH role, but JD is definitely not the best defender of all time, especially when we put him out in the outfield when one of our outfielders ends up taking the day off or getting an off day, whatever it may be. But JD is definitely not in a lineup for his defense. He's definitely there solely to hit dingers and to get his team on the board. So is there anywhere else, Dan, that you think that JD could end up in the American League besides Chicago?
That's a good question. I think, as you said, Chicago is definitely the number one other option and right fit for him. But I mean, it's hard because it's not just, you have to have the DH and be in the AL, but you also have to be a team that has, the money. Because if he's leaving, he obviously wants that big paycheck. And, it's tough for contenders like Houston and New York. They can't really go for those big money guys because they already have money flying out their wallets to other players. So, I mean, you got to look at the rising teams like, we said Chicago, they're rising. Tampa Bay, it's like they're rising. I don't know, because if you look at the rising teams in the AL, they're kind of questionable franchises. Oakland, Tampa Bay, they're on the up, but I'm not sure how long they're going to stay.
How far they could keep going up.
Yeah, I don't know if this is just like 15 minutes of fame kind of thing, but like it all depends on where JD's head's at. Do you want to take a pay cut in pursuit for another ring in Boston? A great fit for you, or do you want to get the paycheck and also have maybe in the future wait a little bit and then you have another chance at a title run? So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to be something to watch. I think everyone's going to be paying attention to what the Red Sox are doing this offseason. It's definitely the forefront of offseasons, front office offseasons, and player movement offseasons to watch in a long time, especially for Boston. But speaking about like where the guy's head is at, I feel like if JD does end up opting out, the Red Sox may ride out the Mookie Betts contract. I feel like you just look at a guy like Mookie Betts. You look at him like after he hits a home run, he's smiling, looking at the dugout, Mr. Smile in Boston, and just the amount of talent and like you've heard him speak about his love for the city and how much he loves playing in Boston and at Fenway and for the fans. I think he's one of those guys that I would trust him in a free agency situation. If I know I'm not going to have any say in the matter, but if you look at what Mookie Betts has done for Boston, how the people of Boston treat Mookie Betts, he's one of those guys that he wants to be there, and the fans obviously want him there. It's definitely going to be expensive. I mean, we know that's a fact, especially coming off a World Series title, MVP, Gold Glove, Silver Slugger, all the awards you can think of for Mookie Betts. He's gonna get more in his near future, just beginning to start his prime. A homegrown product of the Red Sox farm system coming all the way up from single A to double A to triple A to the Boston Red Sox and to becoming a World Series champion. I trust Mookie Betts if JD ends up opting out to go play another year in Boston. We know he's going to be an offensive performer, outfield stud next year because that's just what Mookie Betts does. That's who he is. It's what he's easily defined himself as, carved out his little niche in the big leagues. He is going to be I believe he's going to be a contributing factor to the Red Sox this next season. I do think his name will be thrown around by the new management at the winter meetings this in a few months or so, but I don't think anybody's going to has enough to offer the Red Sox to really sway them to selling Mookie Betts, especially if he still wants to play in Boston for one more year and ride that out, go down with the ship, ride out into the sunset, whatever it may be. But I trust Mookie Betts to test free agency and maybe find his way back into Boston.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you're saying, that same path. It's just, of course, this upcoming season is going to be a big, point to see because, if we have another bad season, that could definitely affect Mookie's decision. But, if we're in the playoffs making moves like the last couple of years, then, maybe that definitely affects the decision. And also, what is not just Mookie's side, but, the actual Red Sox organization. We're without, we just got rid of our GM. I doubt we get a new GM, and the first thing he does is trade away Mookie Betts out of nowhere. Like, that's a pretty bold move.
Yeah.
But I think the thing they just got to do is, write down a number on the piece of paper, slide it over the Betts, be like, this is what we can do, take it or leave it. And, then it's just up to Mookie at that point. And I think, as you said, he loves the city, he loves the team. And if he really does, then he'll take a pay cut and to be here.
Yeah, especially he's got that arbitration coming up. He's likely to make north of $25 million for one season this year. But keeping him is not out of the question. I feel like everyone that is looking at it from a baseball perspective expects Mookie Betts to be traded in the offseason. But no one is giving any attention to, like, what if the Red Sox continue to put up the same numbers that they did last year and play basically 500 baseball for the majority of the season? Dealing him at the deadline is not out of the question yet either. We know Mookie Betts is going to put up amazing offensive numbers, and that may make him even more valuable when it comes to the trade deadline. You look at how the Arizona Diamondbacks acquired JD Martinez right before the deadline, or how the Houston Astros acquired Justin Verlander just before, like seconds before the deadline. That really put them over the top to winning their first World Series. But yeah, dealing Mookie Betts at the deadline is what I likely see as the most probable chance. But all these dominoes have to fall into place, like JD Martinez opting out in 2 weeks, for that to even be a possibility. But like you were talking about, the new management, it would be a ballsy move as a first move to come into Boston, get your desk, get your corner office, and say, "See you, Mookie Betts. Let's get some prospects and a first rounder in here and see what happens," and just develop that farm system. I cannot see that happening whatsoever, especially with Dave Dombrowski on his way out, and it would I would be absolutely shocked, and it would shock the nation, shock the world, shock Boston if we hired some big name manager or president of operations to come in and he dealt Mookie Betts right away and started clearing house the same way Derek freaking Jeter did in Miami. You can't have that in Boston. That won't fly. But even if Mookie Betts and JD find themselves playing in uniforms that aren't white and red next season, the offense is going to be fine. We've talked about this a million times. Up-and-comers, like new bats. And Christian Vasquez learned how to hit a baseball this season. Rafael Devers is a superstar. Xander Bogaerts is a superstar. Andrew Benintendi likely won't have the slump that he did last year, and he's likely to be back and ready to start hitting the baseball again. He had a tough year coming off the World Series win, but the offense is going to be completely fine no matter what happens. This team will be in contention for a wild card spot, maybe even the division again, depending on what happens the rest of the offseason, especially in New York and Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has a lot of money they can spend, so they might find the guy that beat them in Game 5 in Garrett Cole, finding his way down there. But moving on to finish up the Red Sox talk today on the Sox and 4 podcast, Stephen Wright is released. He's no longer a part of the Boston Celtics. It came out a few days ago that I think right-handed knuckleballer found himself out of Boston, found himself out at $1.5 million contract for next season. The Red Sox are going to swallow that and send him to the curbside. What do you think about this move, getting rid of Stephen Wright?
I think it's just it was a matter of time. Yeah. Obviously, he was on the All-Star team like 2015 or 2016. So
2016.
He definitely was a good pitcher at the time, but as things went on, his game kind of decreased. He had some off the field issues, and it was, I think it was mutual of like, it's time to just part ways. Yeah. But he did do some good things for the team a couple of years ago. So, you just got to respect that, I guess.
Just for some numbers, these are off the top of my head. You have to fact check me on these ones, but I'm pretty sure this season he was I know he was suspended for 80 games because of performance-enhancing drugs, so that cost him half the season already. Some injury issues, and then he. First off, how are you getting injured while you're taking performance-enhancing drugs? Come on, like that's supposed to like keep you in the game instead of pull you back out of it. But he appeared in 4 games this season. I'm pretty sure he gave up 4 or 5 home runs. His knuckleball doesn't exist anymore. Knuckleball is hard to catch as a catcher already. You got to put a massive glove on the size of a watermelon. But Stephen Wright is gone. I think one of his career highlights in Boston, definitely that all-star team that saw like 8 or 9 Boston Red Sox. I almost said Boston Celtics for some reason. Boston Red Sox finding their way to the all-star game in San Diego because that was Big Poppy's last year. Brock Holt was on that team. Stephen Wright was on that team. But yeah, that was one of his career highlights in Boston. All besides probably getting a World Series ring last year. I don't think he was on the active roster for the World Series. But I would say, do you remember, I think it was a Bank of America commercial a few years ago, right when Chris Sale got traded to Boston. It was Chris Sale, David Price, and Stephen Wright in an ice cream truck. They were trying to figure out how they should introduce Chris Sale to the fans of Boston. And it is probably one of the best Red Sox commercials I've ever seen, where Chris Sale offers to give free ice cream to all the kids of Boston. And he's like, and the kids are asking how much, like, what's the price? And how much does it cost? And says, don't worry about it. It's on sale. But how much does it cost? Probably one of the funniest commercials of recent Red Sox history besides the what the eck and when we had our boy Spike King and GRD with Ace Ticket talking about what the heck Dennis Eckersley was talking about. But I encourage you guys, look up the Chris Sale, David Price, Stephen Wright, Bank of America ice cream truck commercial. It is comedy gold.
I also think back in 2017 when the win dance repeat was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I think Red Sox like Twitter tweeted out this video of all the outfielders in like a meeting in like a boardroom.
Oh, yes.
And then they look down the hallway, and it's just Stephen Wright and like Wally doing the dance. I was like, that was a good time.
It all starts from somewhere. Those were fun times. I'm just thinking, like, getting nostalgic about the Red Sox. Just looking back at those teams. Those were when I was in high school, and just thinking about those teams and how fun they were to watch. They didn't win anything for a while, but those teams were fun to watch. They had fun with it. Definitely didn't feel that at all this year. Just to put it on a sad note, but it was not a fun time this year, especially playing 500 baseball, barely 5 wins above.
It's just weird to feel like entering the postseason. It's just like, wow, the Red Sox. We have no Red Sox baseball to watch.
I know.
Consecutive playoff runs and division titles. It's like,
yeah. I think I might have talked about this on our last show, but I'm a senior in college. This is the first time one of the Boston teams has not made playoffs since I've been here. It's kind of crazy to think about. The Bruins have made it the last 3 years. The Patriots have been in the Super Bowl the last 3 years. The Celtics have been in playoffs the last 4 years, I think. And this is the first time the Red Sox have missed playoffs since, was it 2014, I think? I think so. It was after the World Series win. But yeah, so that'll conclude our Sox talk for the day. Contractually obligated, as the name implies, to talk about the Boston Red Sox, especially during the offseason, even with the World Series right around the corner. Some fun news coming out of Major League Baseball today in the video game world. Javier Baez is the cover athlete of MLB The Show 2020, which is very exciting. Have you ever played The Show?
Oh yeah, no, I have a PlayStation.
Okay.
In like a couple years ago, I bought a PlayStation just so I could play.
Okay. Dang. Yeah. We might have to play together sometime. That game's just fun, like playing the career mode or what's the mode where you can't. It's like it redrafts every player from Major League Baseball history. It's like an all-time draft, and you can play it at you can use them as a real team.
Oh, it's like a Royale or something.
Yeah, it's like the franchise mode in Madden, where literally any player is available. It's like an automated fantasy draft, and Babe Ruth always ends up at the top. Mike Trout's always up there. Randy Johnson, those type of guys. And it's like redrafted. They end up on any team in baseball, and you just get to play it. You can play an entire season with them. You can play all 162 or simulate all of them and maybe play one a series, but it's fun. If you end up drafting a team, I've played this. It's probably one of the only modes I've played in there. But but I played with this just super team. We had like our outfield consisted of Mookie Betts, Mike Trout, and Charlie Blackmon. Um, and just I don't think we ever lost a game. I'm pretty sure I pitched like 7 no-hitters in a row, and just like setting all kinds of records. Like every team's setting records. It's a fun game just to mess around with. It's kind of like a sandbox, like that kind of thing. You can do anything in that game, and I definitely enjoy that game.
I'm also glad it's Javi Baez because he's just one of the young, like one of the best players to watch, up and coming, especially after last year's cover where I was expecting it to be a Red Sox. I mean, like after the World Series, you give it to Bryce Harper, who like when they announced it, he didn't even have a team yet.
I know. That's crazy.
So stupid. But,
yeah, definitely a fun thing, especially Javier Baez. Definitely deserved it. That guy is fun to watch. One of the best defensive shortstops in the National League. He does play shortstop, right? I'm not thinking of. Yeah, he does play shortstop. Yeah, but some of the picks that guy has, some of the clutch hits he has for Chicago, I think it is crazy looking back. Like I know we've been talking about 2016 a little bit, looking back at the Chicago team from a few years ago that won the World Series. How it's really built around Chris Bryant, and now Chris Bryant's on the trading block the same way Mookie Betts is. And now I think that Chicago Cubs team is going to probably build around Javier Baez. He's their future. That guy is very good. I would expect him to get a contract very similar. I don't know what his contract situation is. I haven't researched that enough, but I would definitely expect him to get one very close, maybe even surpassing the one that Xander Bogaerts signed in-house with the Boston Red Sox a few months ago, right before the season started. Or was that was like mid-season? When did Bogey sign that one?
It was it was like the first month of the season or something.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying to remember the timeline because I remember where I was when I saw the news. I just don't know when it was.
Yeah.
Let's move on to some postseason baseball talk. What an exciting postseason this has been so far, starting with the wild card games all the way up to the National League Championship Series and the American League Championship Series. Every series has basically been somewhat of what we expected. A lot of surprises, especially on the National League side. I would say the American League side is basically what we saw coming for majority of the season, starting with just breezing over the American League wildcard game between the Tampa Bay Rays in the American League East and the Oakland Athletics in the American League West, going at it in Oakland hosting the wildcard game for the first time in probably a long time, because I know they've been visiting a lot of stadiums for their recent postseason successes, and not even postseason successes, regular season successes that don't transfer into the postseason, and getting eliminated in the first round every year. But Oakland Athletics losing to Tampa Bay Rays. Tampa Bay would move on to face the Houston Astros and give them basically all they could handle, taking that series, one of the 4 series that ended up going to 5 games, with Garrett Cole pitching the 5th game clutch and bringing the Astros to the American League Championship. And then also other side of the American League Divisional Series, the New York Yankees taking on the Minnesota Twins in what was a bludgeoning. It looked like the Twins had some fight in them, but in the long run, getting swept by the bashing teams. It's just insane to look at what the Minnesota Twins were able to do in the regular season. The home run records they set, they will always have, not always, for the time being, like the home run record for regular season baseball, like the most home run hitting team in Major League Baseball history. I would put the house that record is broken with a month left in the season next year. Just the offensive revolution in Major League Baseball with the long ball, because chicks dig the long ball. So that record is bound to be broken next year. I think the Minnesota Twins had 8-9 players that all hit 20-plus home runs this season, which was also another home run record in Major League Baseball. But in the long run, they started hitting. They had the lead for a few against the New York Yankees, but in the long run, got swept in 3 games to advance the Yankees to the American League Championship. And the only DS series that went 3 games and did not go 5 games. What do you think about the American League side of it up to the ALCS so far?
I'm just putting it out there. Like the Minnesota Twins, just very disappointing. Like I thought, we were gonna, maybe see an upset. I was definitely putting, all my chips on the Twins to actually do something in the postseason.
I think a lot of Red Sox fans were.
Yeah. So, I mean, because the last couple of postseason appearances they've had were just the wild card game and, one and done. So they actually had a.
And they looked like they were going to win that game too. They had a leadoff home run in that game against the Yankees, and it seemed like they had control. And
yeah, exactly. So it's like, I don't know. I think the main problem with the Twins is, we talked about their historic offense, but when it comes down to the postseason, even if that offense is, putting up 8 runs or they're getting shut out, it all comes down to pitching. And the last 5 years, these recent Twins teams, they haven't had, this great, like any great pitching, no big names. I mean, game 2, didn't they have like a Uber driver, like a former?
Oh yeah, I forgot what his name was, but he was pitching at Yankee Stadium, and they
we don't
berated him.
We don't even know his name, and he started in game 2 in the divisional series. Like, that's just not the formula to beat the New York Yankees. So they have to go back to the drawing board, I guess. And for the rest of the American League playoffs, I mean, it was, as you said, basically chalk. The Astros and the Yankees were just on a collision course with each other. And the ALCS was very memorable. It reminded me of 2017, 2 years ago, when the Astros won again. And, it was great to watch.
Yeah. Back to the ALDS between the Yankees and the Twins. I feel like at this point, it's got to be a mental thing for the Minnesota Twins. I know I talked to a few Twins fans at work this past week, and them explaining what the New York Yankees were to them was really funny to me, because as a Red Sox fans, we've definitely had the best of them for the last 10 years or so. But seeing the sadness of a Twins fan talking about the Yankees, they don't even hate the Yankees. They dislike them. I know that they've been eliminated by the Yankees probably the last 5-6 times the Twins have even made the playoffs, and it's always the Yankees sending them packing at the end of the day. But I think it's got to be a mental thing. Like, you see the teams that see a Minnesota Twins team, and every time you make the playoffs, on the other side of in your bracket, it's the New York Yankees, and you can't ever get past them. It has to be a mental thing at this point for the Minnesota Twins. It's really tough to watch. It's really sad for them with a team so historically good with the home run ball. But like you're talking about, that American League Championship, holy cow, what a series. I was definitely worried towards the end. If you talk about Game 6, what a game. Between both opposing pitchers, the offensives, the clutch hits, with the home run from Yuli Gurriel. Was it a 3-run shot? I didn't watch the first 5 innings of the game.
It was I think it was a 3-run shot in one of the first 3 innings, early. So
that game was fun to watch at the end, especially I was convinced that the Astros were going to win it in the top of the 9th and not even have to play the bottom frame of the inning. But DJ LeMahieu's 2-run home run, probably the clutchest hit in recent Yankee history, considering they have had nothing to cheer for the last 10 years, which has been a blessing. But that hit, that one shook me. I was so surprised. They were I'm pretty sure was it 1 out, 2 out? I think Aaron Judge was on base with a hit.
Yeah, I think it was there was 1 out in the inning maybe. So yeah. I think
LeMahieu went jumbo to tie it up. That was crazy.
Yeah, it reminded me, seeing Springer jump on the wall reminded me of Mookie last postseason, but didn't snag it like Mookie did. But
I feel every time we're gonna watch a postseason series in Houston, when it's that electric, the crowd is buzzing, and there's a fly ball hit to right field in the Minute Maid Park, everyone's gonna reminisce about the call against or for Mookie Betts.
Yeah, or what was the Brantley catch where he made that scooping diving catch. I was like, that's like Benintendi right there. That was the defensive play of the series by far. Like, I might have been able to think about one before that, but once that Brantley catch happened and he gunned it to first base to erase Aaron Judge, was special. That's when I feel like that game was pretty closely contended, even though the Astros did have the lead when that happened. I feel like that was definitely the turning point that gave the Astros the hey, we're going to do this. We're going to finish this thing today. Even though the Yankees did end up tying it up, that was the mentality. That was the play that really set the attitude, changed the
the rest of the game, really, especially with the Yankees tying it up in the ninth inning.
Yeah, I think, like, even though we all thought the Astros were just going to end it in the top of the ninth, it kind of made it sweeter to see Altuve, just walk it off against the Yankees. Because, you see on Twitter all the Yankees fans.
All the Yankees fans going, "What's up?
They're like, oh,
what's up? Talk
game
now.
7, here we go. Game 7,
Get ready for 7.
Back.
It's happening. The Bronx Bombers are back. And guess what? Yankees went home."
Yeah, like not even 10 minutes later, Altuve just blasted.
I love that so much. Just like I'm on Twitter looking at the highlights and everything because I missed the game, most of the game up to that point. But I'm on Twitter and I look up and just that was a long at bat. That was probably a 10-9 pitch at bat, just fouling him off, staying alive until he got the pitch. I don't know what it was, but he took it jumbo. And the Yankees Twitter's like, "It's a whole new ball game. Watch out. Houston, you got a freaking problem. Don't let us get hot now." And not, like you said, 10 minutes later, just Yankees fan. Like, do you remember I don't even know who the guy was from, it was in Yankee Stadium. Chapman was in to close, and Rafael Devers took him deep.
Yeah. Taking a video of himself, and then
I'll do my best.
Smiling, and then his face is
like,
just
ready. Uh-oh. Here we go, Chapman. And he's just looking around like he's looking for an answer. It's like stadium's a little buzzing. Like Yankee Stadium definitely buzzes for postseason baseball, and even that wasn't even postseason. That was just against rival Red Sox. But seeing that man's soul disappear from his body, that's the only thing I could think of about, because he was so excited. And that video, we got to post that video to Hot Corner again with the Altuve home run. But that ninth inning was fun. It was definitely like a little bit like concerning after the 2-run shot for LeMahieu. But when Altuve hit that, I was hands up. I was so happy that the Yankees were gonna have to pack their bags. They were going home. And I think the funniest thing, I saw a tweet. Someone had reporter had interviewed Alex Bregman, and he said game 6, and he said that coming into that game, we knew that you guys would be watching football tomorrow, which is really funny considering Game 7 with Garrett Cole on the mound would have been slated for Sunday night in Houston to close out the series for a winner-take-all. That didn't happen. Jose Altuve had something else to say about it. And I feel like someone in that series could have hit 5 home runs in that series, and Jose Altuve's home run would have just eliminated them from ALCS MVP, like the conversation entirely. Like, I'm pretty sure Springer probably had 2, 3, 4, 5 RBIs. Someone probably had more than that. But what Jose Altuve was able to do in that series, especially on the very last pitch of the series, to win the American League was fantastic, and he definitely deserved every piece of that award that he got for winning the American League, for winning the American League Championship Series MVP, not the American League MVP, because that's opposite him at the third base side probably. You think, speaking of the Astros, do you think Alex Bregman has enough like offensive numbers and the statistics to dethrone Mike Trout from that MVP spot that he looked like he was going to win for the entire season?
I definitely think there's, an argument to be had of that conversation, but at the end of the day, it's safe to say put your money on Mike Trout because, it's Mike Trout. Like,
it's Mike Trout, the best player in baseball still. But
it's a safe bet.
It's the same reason Mookie Betts ended up winning the award 2 years ago or last year, because Mike Trout went down with injury, opening the door for another player to step to the occasion and basically win the WAR battle. I feel like the wins above replacement is the number in baseball right now. It's like the hot, sexy number that everyone looks to for if this player is good or not. And Alex Bregman surpassed Mike Trout in WAR on the very last day of the season with I'm pretty sure it's like 0.1 wins above replacement better than Mike Trout this season, considering Mike Trout missed the last month or so of the season. But there's definitely an argument. I think there was some chatter about it, but in the long run, for majority of the season, for 140 games, Mike Trout was in the driver's seat. Everyone expected Mike Trout to win. I don't even know how many he's got. Third, fourth MVP in the last 6, 7 years. And Alex Bregman had something to say about it. He definitely started the conversation with the numbers he put up in the last half of the season, last 2 weeks of the season, especially to surpass Mike Trout. I think it was really cool. It's like a buzzer beater in basketball. Very last day of the season, because WAR takes a while to calculate and whatnot. But once the season ended, you look back and you're like, oh, there's a new guy at the top of the WAR leaderboard, and his name is Alex Bregman, and he's playing for a team that's actually contending for the World Series right now, as opposed to Mike Trout over in Anaheim. Speaking of Anaheim, why not? Let's talk about Joe Madden to the Anaheim Angels. It's where he started his managerial career, his coaching career out in Anaheim before he got a full-time gig in Tampa Bay. But Joe Madden going home, hopefully lead a new charge for the up-and-coming Anaheim Angels. I think it's a good move. I think it's kind of an in-house move. Bring a guy back that knows the system. Really developed some. I don't know if there's a lot of young players left there that are probably now veterans that Madden maybe coached when they were there. Not sure, but I think having a new manager is definitely a good move for the Angels. I don't think it was fair to Brad Ausmus, though. He was the manager last season. Considering the injuries to Shohei Ohtani, to Mike Trout, I don't think it was fair for him to be in there for one season and then booted to the door 162 games later. Considering their record, it wasn't pretty. They were below 500 all season long. But if you have the best player in baseball, you gotta be able to do something with them. And I think a change of face may end up helping the Angels in the long run.
Yep.
Back to the postseason. Where were we? ALCS, Jose Altuve's walk-off home run. If you haven't already, check out the Hot Corner Instagram page and look at all the highlights of that game. Dan was awesome enough to cover that game, as well as I put together a fun little hype video to get us all excited for the World Series coming up tomorrow night, or today, if you're watching it on Tuesday, listening on Tuesday. World Series starts in Minute Maid Park in Houston, Texas, tomorrow night against the Washington Nationals. Should be a really fun fall classic, one for the ages. Definitely one that's definitely contested, more so than they've been in the last few seasons. You look at last year's Boston Red Sox. We love them. You love them. That team was dominant. That team was favored to win the World Series from the All-Star break and on, and they delivered on their promise. You look at the upcoming fall classic this year between the Nats and the Astros. Houston is a heavy favorite, and they're the heaviest favorites in a World Series. I think it's almost 2-1 odds, basically, that Houston has to win this coming series. It's the biggest margin of favoritism since our 2007 Boston Red Sox. 2007 Boston Red Sox. But I don't think they should be that big of favorites. What do you think?
I think it's just disrespectful after the postseason that Nationals put up. They didn't just sneak their way in. They, did a great series against the Dodgers, and they just murdered the Cardinals in that for the NLCS. Like, they just made quick work of them, and they've been we've been busy talking about the ALCS. The Nationals have been at home watching it on their TVs for like.
That series was really over before the ALCS had even started.
Yeah.
Because you look at the game 1 and 2, what the Nationals were able to do in St. Louis, nonetheless, to win the first 2 games on the road, come back and finish the job at Nationals Park was insane. Game 1 of the ALCS started the night following Game 2 of the NLCS. I'm not sure who the pitchers were, but it was Anibal Sanchez who had the no-hit bid, and then Max Scherzer with the no-hit bid into the 8th inning again. Seeing what those 2 guys were able to do before Patrick Corbin, before Steven Strasburg had even touched the field, was crazy. Even though I think Strasburg did have a relief appearance in Game 2 prior to his start, kind of similar to what Alex Cora was doing, like the kind of like the flex guy, the guy that's the start of the next day, getting like just doing his bullpen session in a real game situation. But these 2 teams are probably some of the most evenly matched. This game could easily go, or this series could easily go 7 games, and will go down as one of the great fall classics. I think it'll be probably the best one since I wouldn't consider the Dodgers Astros series of 17 one of the better ones, even though it did end up going seven games in a decider at the very end of it. I think it'll be the best World Series in the last 5 years, looking back to the 2016 when the Chicago Cubs won it against the Cleveland Indians. I think it's got that potential to be one of the best World Series of recent memory, considering the starting pitching on either side. You look at Sanchez. Sanchez, like, he's getting no love. This guy almost no hit game 1 of the National League Championship, and he's their probably game 3 starter at this point. You got Max Scherzer, who has turned into a postseason stud, getting his first World Series action since 2006. 2006 when he was with the Detroit Tigers, which is even insane to just look at the comparisons. That 2006 Tigers team consisted of Justin Verlander, who was very young, and Max Scherzer, who was also very young. And those guys, oh man, that's crazy. Just to even think about that. That should be a matchup of the ages. I wish they were able to pitch against each other. I'm pretty sure Scherzer's going game 1, right? In the World Series. And then
I think Verlander's going game 2.
Okay.
I know.
See, that would have been a fun storyline. Teammates. Those guys were teammates with Rick Porcello, a few other guys. Annabelle Sanchez was on that team too.
Yeah, exactly. Like around 2012,
2013. Yeah. But yeah, this World Series is going to be fun. Let's talk about the Nationals for a second. What a run for the Nationals! I'm not sure if they're the first team since 2007 to make the World Series, following a wild card win, but they're on a roll. I know there's a specific date in May, if you look back, that the Nationals have the best record in baseball, 1 game better than the Houston Astros from that point to where we're at today, getting ready for the World Series tomorrow night. The Nationals should not be slept on, and the Nationals, I know Pedro Martinez said at the beginning of the postseason, I know the Spike King said at the beginning of the season, and I just kind of brush them off like, oh, that's just something they have to say. Like, the Nationals are going to shock the world, and indeed they have. Nobody had them making it this far. It's insane what they've been able to do, especially when you look at the departures of Bryce Harper this past offseason, and the ghosts of past that the Nationals have had the last few years combined. The Instagram TV video that we dropped, that shows the Cubs advancing to the NLCS over the Nationals, and the Dodgers advancing to the NLCS over the Nationals. This team has had some ghosts. It has had some skeletons in the closet, but you can throw all that out the door now. Bryce Harper's hit the door now. This Nationals team is here to stay. They will be contending for a World Series, not just this year. This team is going to probably contend for that division next year as well. Against the Braves, you see what the Cardinals were able to do against the Braves in the DS this year. That division is going to be one to watch, considering the great teams you have. I'm not sure if you can throw the Phillies into that mix yet, but the Braves are going to be back. They're so young. They still have some maturing to do. I think that's what their ultimate downfall was in this year's postseason. But seeing the Phillies, like I said, I don't think they're going to be close to contention yet. I think they're still a few pieces away, a few years of maturation before they can get there. And then the Nationals are definitely here to stay, especially if Anthony Rendon ends up re-signing with the Nats. I know he was offered a very, very, I don't even know the word, expensive deal to stay in Washington. One a little cheaper than what they offered Bryce Harper, but they want Anthony Rendon there. He's a fun guy, and he is definitely in the National League MVP conversation this year. Was like he is the NL MVP candidate that nobody talked about. Nobody even knew who Anthony Rendon was before his 4-run home run game, I think 2 seasons ago, when Bryce Harper was still with the team, and Bryce Harper just overshadowed that immensely. But since you don't have Harper there anymore, you kind of have the spotlight shown on the entire team and not just on one guy. You look at guys that have stepped to the plate. Juan Soto this postseason, he's putting up offensive numbers that nobody has before. Like, Rafael Devers had some unreal postseason numbers last year's postseason at age 22, and Juan Soto has matched that and then one-upped it this year, leading that team past the Brewers in the wild card game with one of the most clutch hits I've ever seen. in the wild card game thus far. But that kid is something special, and they've got him under team control, very similar to what the Red Sox have in Rafael Devers. Just young studs, young offensive numbers. They can play defense a little bit. Juan Soto is definitely better at defense than our boy Devers, but the young core that they have, and the Nationals being the oldest team in baseball. You look at Howie Kendrick hitting a grand slam in the 10th inning versus the Dodgers to advance them to the world or to the National League Championship Series, and him winning MVP, hitting 10 plus RBIs. I'm pretty sure at least 10 RBIs in that series to down the Dodgers, his former club. But that Nationals team it's old. It's got the young stars on it, but they are here to stay, and they are ready to make some noise like they already have, and they're ready to finish the fight versus the Houston Astros. And they use the same mantra that anyone who's played Houston the last few years has, and Houston, you've got a problem. And I think Houston definitely has to do their homework. They definitely have to understand, like, this is not going to be easy. We may be, because if they even get a whiff of what the numbers are, considering how heavily a favorite they are, that's when it can start going downhill. The number I think about is the Patriots being like 4-1 favorites to win the Super Bowl against the Eagles once they knew the matchup, and they knew the numbers, and they ended up not winning. But you look at what the Nationals, the underdogs, heavy underdogs, biggest since the Colorado Rockies in 2007, like we said, they are going to make some noise, and they're going to give the Astros a run for their money, and likely one of the best World Series we've seen in a long time. This Nationals team has just been fun to watch, and I've said it on the Hot Corner page. I'm a Nats stan. I'm backing the Nats all the way. They have been exciting. They have been fun. They are making noise. They have some of the best pitching I've ever seen. What do you think? Who do you think you'll be backing? Or are you just rooting for a good series this year?
I mean, obviously, I got to root for a good series because just entertainment factor. But if I have to pick a side, it's got to be the Nationals. I mean, I haven't seen a wild card team with this firepower and this pitching staff like probably ever. And it's crazy like a team like this can just kind of make a run out of nowhere. I mean, I was doing research on it a couple of days ago. I believe some point in May, like you brought up, they were plenty of games under 500, and they had like maybe a 7% chance to even make the postseason.
They were, I think, 19-31 at one point, and since that date is when they've had the best record in baseball, to get into clinch the wild card game and then eventually make it to the freaking World Series from the wild card role. Speaking about pitching, just the starting pitching in this series alone, I know we've touched on it briefly, but looking at the Nationals side, from Anibal Sanchez to Max Scherzer to Steven Strasburg to Patrick Corbin, and then on the Houston side, Justin Verlander, Garrett Cole, both those guys are going to be competing for the American League Cy Young. They could even give out co-Cy Youngs. I'd be very thrilled if that was the case, because both those guys have carried that team. Garrett Cole has been literally unbeatable this year, but the starting pitching in this World Series is going to be one for the ages. It is the best starting pitching, I think, since the 2001 World Series between the Arizona Diamondbacks and the New York Yankees. That World Series featured the Cy Young winners from both sides of the American League and National League, with Curt Schilling, with Randy Johnson, with Andy Pettitte, with Roger Clemens, and even out of the bullpen, Mariano Rivera closing out every single game of that series. And before eventually giving up a walk-off run or walk-off single to end Game 7 and give the Arizona Diamondbacks their only World Series in franchise history, 3 years after their incarnation. But this will be definitely one of the best World Series. If you're a fan of starting pitching, watch every game of this series, because it could end up being 1-0 every single night. Both sides are going to have to do anything they can to produce a run as often as they're going to be bunting every inning just to move a man over from first to second. Anything they can do to get a runner in scoring position, they are going to do that in this series, because the starting pitching will be legendary. This is like where the legends are made, and I would be very I'd be very surprised if a starting pitcher didn't win World Series MVP this year. It hasn't happened for a while since Madison Bumgarner won it, but I think this is the year that a World Series MVP is a starting pitcher from one of these two sides, whoever ends up winning it.
Yep. I just think it's just crazy that they're. I remember watching a Phillies Nationals game in like early April, and it was Bryce Harper's return to DC for the first time in a Phillies uniform. He went deep. He had a great game, and the Phillies pounced on the Nationals. I was like, okay, the Nationals are definitely,
dead ducks. Yeah.
They're going to be in a dark hole for the next couple of years, and the Phillies are on the come up. And then months later, look at where we are now, where it's the total opposite.
It's really hard to talk about what the Nationals have done this year and not mention, like you said, Bryce Harper and the entire situation. Once he left in free agency for 13 years and $330 million with the Philadelphia Phillies, but the ghost that guy will have hanging over his shoulder about what he wasn't able to do, being the strikeout victim for Game 5 in the NLDS against the Chicago Cubs. I'm pretty sure. You might have to fact check me on that one. But swinging out, striking against the Chicago Cubs to send the Cubs to the NLCS before eventually being eliminated there to the Dodgers. But the ghosts that Bryce Harper is going to have are pretty significant considering how far he's made it with that team, winning 90-plus games and winning the division in a few years. But being eliminated every single year that the Nationals ever made the playoffs, never winning an elimination game. It's going to be tough for Bryce Harper to lead that Phillies team, especially like having that looking over his shoulder. You got to turn that into a chip on his shoulder. You got to understand now this is Bryce Harper's team. No one's looking at the Philadelphia Phillies and saying, "Nah, it's Jake Arrieta's team." Who else is on the Phillies? It's Bryce Harper's team. That's why they brought him there for 13 years. That's what they want, success there in Philly, and I don't think it's going to happen this year, but they will. I think they will find success with Bryce Harper eventually, but class move by Bryce Harper as well, talking about how happy he is for the Nationals after they clinched the World Series berth this week. Texting his guys, calling his guys, letting them know how happy, how proud he is of them, instead of just Grinch style or Scrooge in it, where he's just like, oh, should have been me. I made the bad decision, but. Very class move by Bryce Harper to call out his former teammates, and those are his guys, those are his brothers, those are the guys he was in the trenches with while he was in Washington since he was drafted there, really. So very class move by him. I think that video of him in his Phillies press conference as soon as he started with them is never going to go away now, especially since it happened this offseason. Nationals are in the World Series, and Bryce Harper mistakenly, it's got to be known that he did not mean to say it whatsoever, but in a Phillies hat, in his new Phillies number 3 jersey, said, "Yeah, we want to bring a title back to DC." while he's in Citizens Bank, I think that's the name of their ballpark in Philadelphia. But very funny moment. That's never going to go away now. Especially, could you imagine if the Nationals won the World Series? That video would be everywhere again. It's already everywhere.
Yeah, that's just going to be turned into a GIF, and it's going to be all over Twitter for the
back to DC
forever. Yeah,
forever. And that video will be like the Yankees lose kind of thing. Yeah. It's just going to be everywhere. Shout out Bryce Harper. We respect what you did for us. Thanks for bringing us a World Series. Sarcastically, of course. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's time to make our picks for the World Series. Would you like to start, Dan?
Sure.
I gotta think about this.
We've been talking about it. It's crazy. It's a crazy matchup. It's tough to pick because after those 2 championship series, it's hard to just pick one. 2 impressive teams, 2 impressive performances. But I'm gonna go with the Nationals in 7. I think after an incredible run like this, it's gonna be tough to stop them. I feel like the Astros are running on a kind of a high right now after an incredible Game 6 and an incredible battle with the Yankees that they're gonna run into a wall as soon as they meet Max Scherzer Game 1, a well-rested Scherzer Nationals team, and they're gonna show them what's up. But I do think it's gonna, even with Scherzer winning game one. That's what I'm going to say. I still think it's going to go back and forth. Astros take one, Nationals take one, and, it's going to end up going 7 with the Nats winning it all.
I'll counter you. I believe the Astros are definitely a dynasty. We saw what they were able to do the last 2 seasons, losing in the ALCS last year, winning in the World Series the year prior to that, coming off back-to-back 100-loss seasons to get where they are today. This team is here to stay, like I've said, for both clubs. The Astros have been there. They've done that. The Nationals, they're still enjoying postseason success. They've struggled, or not struggled really this postseason, but they're on a hot streak. They've had a long layoff, though. That's the problem. So my pick, I'm choosing the Houston Astros to win in 6 games. 6 games, and another note, they will be the first team to win the World Series at home since the 2013 Red Sox did it. That's my pick. So I think the series will go long. I think it'll go 6 though. I think they win it at home. Same way they won ALCS at home. I think it is going to be dominant pitching. I think the Nationals find a way to get a win at home, few wins at home, impress the crowd. They get to see they won a World Series game in DC, which will be really cool for Nationals fans, especially since they will be back. They will be able to get over that hump eventually, but it's not their year. It's a wild card team. It's really tough to back them, but I do expect the Astros to finish their job against the hottest team in baseball. So my lock of the week now. Lock of the week. Where do you want to do your lock of the week? I got to remember mine. I wrote it down. I got to find it.
I think I was originally just going to say Scherzer throws a shutout game 1. I think that's going to happen, but I'll add, since it's the World Series, I'll add 2. I think Scherzer wins World Series MVP he puts up another good performance in his second start, maybe game, 5, 6, or 7, one of those. So.
Okay. All right. My lock of the week, it's going to be a lot broader than my previous picks, like saying guaranteeing a win here, guaranteeing a win there, guaranteeing a guy hit a home run. I guarantee a pitcher will win World Series MVP this year. Guarantee it. Book it. You look at the dominant pitching from both sides of the ball, from Scherzer to Cole to Verlander to Strasburg to Corbin. It just goes on and on and on. Any one of these guys could find themselves winning World Series MVP. Most likely to be one of the guys that pitches first, like Strasburg or Scherzer versus Cole or Verlander. It's going to be one of those 4. Guarantee it.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I am very excited to start watching this fall classic starting tomorrow night, starting tonight if you're listening. It's going to be fun. I'm not excited for the Joe Buck calls every year, but he did have a pretty good call for ALCS Game 6 on the double play on Jose Altuve's game winner, which was really fun to listen to. I do believe that is one of Joe Buck's best calls of all time because he's not just saying, Jose Altuve, 2-run home run, Astros going to the World Series. It's like he's yelling, like he's excited. Like you could actually hear some emotion in that robot's voice, which is really fun to listen to. I think it's going to be a fun World Series. It's going to be a blast. And whoever comes out of it, it's going to go down as one of the best ones of recent memory. Like I said, you got any closing remarks on what this fall classic's going to look like?
All I'm going to say is expect fireworks. It should be a good time.
It's going to be fun. Both sides of the ball, dominant pitching, crazy offenses. It's going to be one for the ages. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of the Sox and 4 podcast. Once again, we are brought to you by 1 in 100 and presented by Ride the Wave Media. Let's look forward to the World Series. Have a great week, everybody.